Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for my incredibly irregular Storyteller Talks series. It's been, oh, good grief. I've lost track of how long it's been since I did one of these, but let's have one here leading up to the holidays of 2017. Oh, shoot, did I just almost date this? But yes, I'm going to do one, and I don't know how long it's going to be, but we'll see. Today I'm going to talk about something which, if you've been following us here at CharismaToAC, you should be, let's say, familiar with by now. Namely, the concept of finishing a campaign and moving on to another one. And two things about that. First and foremost, finishing a campaign can come in several different forms, of course. It can come through TPK or, wiping out the party or whatever. It can also come because you quite simply finish the story. It can, for that matter, it can happen because people get sick and tired of what's going on, or simply because the group disintegrates. It can be a lot of different reasons, but I'll try to get around to as many of them as I can. And the next part, of course, as I said, is about starting something new. And that's probably going to be the most important part of this, because starting something new involves some choices. You have to make some active choices. And seeing as we finished A Song of Tara about 6 months ago or something like that, and we're now well into the next campaign called The Long Voyage, there are a couple of things that I really want to go over with you as the listeners, with the regards to that, because there are a couple of good examples here that need to be brought up. But let me get started on this. First and foremost, I wish to thank all of you who are here for still being with us. I know that we are not exactly the biggest role-playing channel on the interwebs and on the YouTube thing. We're not. We have at the moment of me recording this, we've got 200 and something. Let me just see how many exactly. 232 subscribers when I record this. I have no idea how many of you guys are actually listening to this. For all I know, it might be 5 of you who actually take, the time to listen to what I ramble on about. But for those of you who do listen, and for those of you who are out there as subscribers in all, thank you. Just absolutely, I cannot say this enough. Thank you. You guys are what you're making it worth it to record these games and to share them, and we so appreciate every single comment you leave. We might even wish that you would leave more. I try to answer every comment I see going up, because you take the time to post something. The least I can do is take the time to answer. If we should ever grow to be a channel of 10,000 followers, maybe I won't be able to anymore. But until that point, when it kind of tips over the edge and I won't be able to overcome all the new comments, I'll continue to do so, because you guys, we are here on the internet because of you. We would obviously still play role-playing games even if we didn't record this and didn't upload it. There's no question of that. But you guys are the reason why we upload, because we appreciate the fact that you take time to listen to a bunch of crazy Danes and a single Englishman, sharing wild stories every week. Secondly, I should say, as I've started saying in every single video, like, share, and subscribe to this. We would love to get more subscribers. Obviously, we would love to get more more recognition, more visibility. If you have friends who might, you play role-playing games with, that you think might benefit from listening to anything we upload, for that matter, who might simply think that it's fun and good entertainment, please tell them about it. and bring them over, let them have a look, see if they're enticed to stick around. But enough of that. Enough ramblings on such issues. I will get into this finishing a campaign thing first. As I said, there are several ways in which a campaign can end. As you saw with A Song at Tara, that campaign was ended in my opinion, in the ideal way, namely that the story was simply over. There was no more story to be told in that campaign. There were 100 stories you could have still told with the same characters, but that campaign was over. And the reason why we did not stick around and tell another 100 stories, and good gods, believe me, the players wanted me to stick around with it for a while longer, because they really, really, really loved their characters, as I think we all did. I certainly did. But the reason why I made the call to end it as the storyteller, as the person doing the actual story, was that I wanted to end on a high note. I wanted to end at a point where those characters had accomplished something incredible, something spectacular, and where they had a feeling of, yeah, we can see these characters moving on from here. We have ideas for what is going to happen to them from now on for the rest of their lives, really, or at least for a very long time going forward. And I thought that was better than watering down the campaign by rehashing ideas, or me running out of steam and finding it difficult to come up with new and interesting storylines for them to go through and encounter. And also bear in mind that in the World of Darkness, as in so many other systems, the higher rank or level, or the more powerful your characters become, the more you have to change the tone of a campaign. You could let a bunch of rank 3, rank 4, even rank 5 werewolves come up against a whole slew of low-ranking pushover Fomor, and it would just Fomori, and it just would not have the same kind of impact as early on in the campaign, when they came across these few Fomori who split their faces and started belching, not belching fire and brimstone, but who literally burst into flames. Suiciders, basically, who burnt up in a sort of phoenix flame, except they didn't rise from the dead afterwards. And that was dangerous. One of them was named for it when Aya kept biting these people and burning her face. So she became known as Bites the Flame. And that is, that's a challenge early on. It's dangerous. It gives the players a sense of, oh my god, what's happening? But when you get on to the the middle or the end of a campaign like that, and the higher rank you get, a Fomori a group of Fomori like that, in fact, would have been like, whatever, we'll just wade through them because we're that tough. And that means you have to come up with more challenging opponents. But not only that, you also have to come up with a different flavor of story, because the characters will have access to resources they don't have at low levels, contacts, allies, spiritual insight in the case of werewolves, and so on, that will make it so much more high-powered. That can be fun, don't get me wrong, that can be absolutely fun, but the campaign had such a gritty and wonderful feel already that I kind of felt that, going into mega super overpowered, incredibly superstar heroics might have taken something away from where they started. And in a situation like that, it's my personal belief. And again, I'm only espousing my personal beliefs in these videos. Just remember that. I'm not saying that I have found the Philosopher's Stone, and I'm not the bee's knees when it comes to GMing. Believe me, there are far better GMs or storytellers out there than me. Seriously, believe me on that. But the well, just yeah, I've played with some of them. So, but the point here, as I'm trying to make, is that keep in mind, as the GM, as the storyteller, as whatever your game system calls the person in charge. I'll just go with storyteller from now on. That just remember that the storyteller in the end is the person in charge of such things. The players may very well try to convince you, oh please, let us continue, let us try, but if you, as the storyteller, sit there and feel, no, this is done, this is done and completed, then let it end there. It doesn't have to go for as long as a Song of Tara did. It could go for far longer. It entirely depends on when you feel that it's done. But respect your own feeling on the matter. And if you are a player, I absolutely understand. I've been in that situation myself several times, where you sit there and go, oh please let us continue, this is so good. In fact, we're playing such a game right now, which we are uploading, Highness Hereticus campaign, Warhammer 40,000. I have longed to get back into that world for so long. I've really wanted to get back to the 41st millennium in a role-playing sense for ages. And now we're there. It is a huge amount of fun. And there is, obviously, for those of you who are familiar with the Dark Heresy game, you may also be familiar with the what's it called? The add-on to that game called Ascended, in which you are able to go beyond the XP level that, when you reach, I think it's 15,000 XP with your Hereticus or Dark Heresy characters. They've hit the ceiling. That's the glass ceiling. That's, it's not to say that the campaign ends there, but they can't really progress to higher levels after that. Ascended means that they can become truly powerful players in the Imperium. An assassin, for example, can go on to become one of several kinds of assassins, most infamously the I forgot what it is right now, the sniper assassin types from the 41st millennium. Somebody will probably crucify me for not remembering it, but right now off the top of my head I can't. The point is that class is infamous for being stupefyingly overpowered. Somebody might actually end up playing an actual Inquisitor, that kind of thing. So you're up to that level of power, and I mean, part of me really wants Heine to allow us to go on to that when and if we get to the end of the highest level of this. But Heine is wisely keeping his options open instead of just caving into my childish pleading and saying we'll see, maybe, perhaps. And he's got previous experience with running that kind of campaign, which, as far as I know, did not go very well. So he's got reason to be wary and saying maybe not. And I will respect it if he says, no, we are not going to do that. I will mope about it, but I'll respect it. And that's what I'll urge other players to do as well. If your storyteller, if your GM, in the end says, no, we're done with this campaign, respect it. Because then it's time to move on to something else. I assume that you would rather have a motivated storyteller than one who's continuing because you tell him to, basically, and he doesn't really want to. Okay, fine, I'll cave in. What kind of fun is that going to be anyway? But that's one way of ending a campaign. Obviously, there are other ways that that campaign ended because it was the natural conclusion to it. But as I said, there are several other ways a campaign can end. It can end because of a TPK, as it's known, total player kill. Every character in the campaign dies. We had a situation like that arise recently in an unrecorded campaign. The reason why we didn't record that, quite simply, is because we play in Danish. We don't have our English player involved in that campaign, so we played in Danish, and that would sorely limit our listening audience for something like that. Back when this campaign was brand new, we did in fact record the first couple of episodes and upload them, but it seemed pointless, really, to continue to do so after a while, so we stopped. And the only use we had for those uploads were basically so we could go back and reminisce and be all, oh my, this war, can you remember when we took down that goblin village at the beginning of this campaign, and that sort of thing, blah 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 blah. It was a Pathfinder campaign called Jade Regent. For those of you who do play Pathfinder, I can heartily recommend Jade Regent. It is an excellent story. It's fun. Be prepared that book 3 in that game, in my opinion, again, my opinion, is an atrocity in how poorly written it is. It is awful. But book 1, book 2, book 4, book 5, and book 6 are very, very good. Have a great story to it. We got into book 4. I'm not going to give any spoilers because some of you might be playing that campaign for all I know, but we got into book 4. And it ended with the characters all dying in a specific fight. The characters had great characters, great in-character personalities. They were fun. They had great dynamics between them. There was, it was fun, but they were, let's just say that they were a suboptimal group. They didn't have a mage, a wizard, a sorcerer as such. They did have an alchemist who can do some blasting and who can do some potions and so on, but it's not quite the same. and they didn't have any battlefield control or buffing other than the potions and so on, and they had no cleric, oracle, so healing was desperately limited. They were up to level 10 and were for the most part still getting along with a cure light wounds wand, which is, as most of you will know if you play that system, is very insufficient at that level. So in the end they all died in a I would say in a blaze of glory, and that obviously ends the campaign. That is another thing where I will say, respect it. Don't go out there and say, oh no, oh god, I can't have that happen. Let's retcon it. Let's try over, and we'll just rewind the campaign, a session, and we will try again, and you can go in and give it another go, and just, role-playing games, sure, if that's your thing, I can't stop you from doing so, but I personally do not want them to be computer games where you can just reload from a previous save. Actions have consequences, and in this situation their actions had the consequence that the campaign ended. And sure, it's bloody anticlimactic when that happens. People sit there going, oh, oops, okay, damned, what do we do now? And then you, as the storyteller, you have to step up to the plate. Nobody else can do it because you just presided over their collective deaths. The players may have ideas for what they want to do, but they're almost certainly going to sit there with an anticlimactic feeling in their stomach, and a sense of, do I really want to try something new? And even if they don't have that last feeling, they're still going to be, So step in, try to soothe any ruffled feathers that might be there, talk to them, let them get any grievances out, be fair, obviously, for goodness sakes, be fair. Um, so yeah, let them get things off their chest, even if they are pissed off and angry and might be grumbly at you for that matter. I mean, don't take any abuse, obviously, but let them get it off their chests, and then don't let that fester. So tell them, okay, let's meet next week or whenever your next scheduled game session might have been, and let's talk about what we do next. A new game, for example. Or, if you already have an idea, if you already know what game you want to run next, present it to them. Say, look, guys, I'm interested in running this game as the next game. Don't say we are going to run this game as the next one. You're not a dictator. Role-playing, as I've said so often before in these, is a collaborative effort. You have got to all agree on, creating the best story. And if you want to play, let's just stick with Pathfinder for the sake of ease here. Let's just say that you want to run what's it called? Curse of the Crimson Throne as the next game. Let's just say that that's the campaign you want to run. Your players go to Paizo's homepage where they can download the player's companion for free, so they have a chance to actually familiarize themselves with the setting and the general tone of the campaign. You come back next time and they say, you know what, sorry, but that's not really our thing. Don't just force it through. Just like the players should respect when the GM says this campaign is over, the GM needs to respect if the players aren't interested in running a specific campaign, no matter how much he or she might want to. So figure out what you want to play between you. Hell, they might even want to try a completely different system. We'll get back to that later. So that's the TPK. It's the most abrupt and the most emotionally impacting of the manners in which a campaign can end, perhaps with the exception of one I'm coming to in a moment. It can feel like a gut punch for everyone. It can even feel like a gut punch for the GM, because obviously, the GM has invested time and effort and quite probably money in the campaign, especially if it's a pre-written campaign. The GM will have bought the books and the all these things, and because buy the damned books. Do not just find somewhere online where you can download them for free. Buy the bloody books, guys. The game companies rely on us as customers to buy their work in order for them to be able to continue to produce more. They need to get a paycheck as well, so buy the bloody books. Anyway, on from that. So yeah, the GM has probably invested money in it, and may very well, as I am in this case. I had all 6, campaign books for Jade Regent. I'll never get to use the last 2, probably at least. I'll never get to use the last 2. So, quite apart from the fact that it's sort of money out the window, yeah, but so it can be a gut punch for the GM for a completely different reason. But for the players who have lost characters that they are almost certainly emotionally invested in, again, just take the time to bring them down gently from that. There's the next reason for ending a campaign, as I see it, is the only one that can really be more emotionally hurtful than the one I just mentioned, and that really depends on the circumstance. But that is when the players tell the GM, we don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to name names or campaigns or anything of the sort, but even we have had that happen in our game group. We have had situations where the players have grown to a point where they are not invested in the campaign anymore, where they don't feel like this is a campaign we are looking forward to playing. Quite frankly, it's become more of a duty than a pleasure to play, and in the end the players said, you know what, sorry, but no thank you, we'd rather play something else because this is no longer fun. And that can feel like a horrific criticism if you're the GM. I'm oh my goodness, that can hurt so bad. I've had it happen to me in the past. I'm not proud of saying so, but I have had that happen to me in the past, and I felt awful. I felt. I'm not gonna lie. I felt like, oh, should I just give up on this whole thing if I can't tell a story that the players are interested in? Good grief. Am I actually a good GM? Am I actually capable of doing this in a way that people enjoy? And I questioned my own role as a storyteller in that situation, or in those situations. I think, to be honest with you, it's only happened once, but it has happened. Admittedly, over a campaign or over a career as a storyteller of just about 32 years now, I don't think it happening once is too awful. It may have happened twice. I'm not sure. About one campaign I ran something like 20 years ago, but even so, no, that in a situation like that, as players, if you do this, make sure that you tell the GM what the problem is. Make sure that you let him or her know what the actual problem is. And unless it's a matter of, the group collectively suddenly growing or even over a period of time, growing an intense personal dislike for the storyteller, just do it nicely. And don't make that person sit there and feel worthless and useless. Let them know that, what, it's not you, it's the actual campaign. If it's a pre-written campaign, it'll often be because of that. It's not because of the GM personally, and just let them know that. If it's an improvised campaign, tell the GM what is wrong, but again, be nice about it. If it's, for example, because, let's just say that the tone of the campaign might not click with you, just let them know that. Say, what, it's a good story and all that, but it's just not my thing. It's not because you can't tell a story, it's just because this is a kind of campaign that doesn't really do anything for me. It's not the sort of thing I enjoy playing. And in fact, I'd tell you to go and listen to one of my earlier recordings, and I think Heine in his GM Talks videos he's also been talking about this, the social contract. Make sure before a campaign starts that you are on the same page about what the campaign should be about and how the tone should be and so on and so forth. But even if you do that, over the course of a campaign, it can change. It can go in unforeseen directions. And that's fine. It's completely fine. But be nice about it. Don't destroy a GM's self-confidence and desire to continue, if at all possible. So, and then if it's because you don't want to play with that GM anymore, again, there's no reason to get nasty about it. I've never had that happen to myself. I've never had it happen I've never gotten to a point where the entire group basically told the GM that I played with, no, sorry, we don't want to have anything more to do with you. It's gotten close a couple of times, I'll admit, but it's never actually happened. And that is important. Don't let it ruin friendships. This is a game. This is just a game. If you can feel that it's getting to that point, it's better to stop it before you actually reach that point. So let the GM know if there's a problem. Perhaps even if you can, let them know before it gets to the point where you don't want to play anymore. Tell them before it gets that far, and try to see if you can't make course corrections and fix things. But let's just say that it's gotten past that point, then tell them nice and quietly, guys, dude, it's not working. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not having fun in this group. It's not you. It's the story, or it's it's the tone, or whatever you need to do. But do it nicely. Walk away gracefully. Even if you are, suddenly, for whatever reason, bitter enemies, recriminations. What's it gonna solve? What good could it possibly do? Just end it nice and quiet, and move on. Now, otherwise, it'll just fester. Believe me, I've seen it happen to friends. It's just no. So these are some of the reasons why, in my opinion, probably many, many more, but these are some of the main reasons why a campaign can come to an end. Obviously, the first one is by far the preferable. The second one is, unfortunately, it's kind of common, especially in groups where the GM and the players consider each other opponents for whatever silly reason. And the last one is obviously something that should be avoided at pretty much at all costs. And let's face it, the last one can also be a matter of a GM. It can go the other way, where a GM is sitting there feeling like, I don't want to play with these players anymore, they don't get it, I don't enjoy this, whatever. In that case, again, do it nicely, bring it down nice and quiet and just, stop it, walk away, try finding other players, or start something new with the same group that is more in line with what everybody wants. Oh, sorry, I've really got something in my throat today. Let's go on to the next part. Let's move on to the next part of this video, sorry. Yep, that was the top of my teapot making noise. Anyway, the next part of this is about the as I said, the moving on to something else part, getting started on the next new thing that you want to do. And again, sit down, talk it over within the group, social contract, all of that jazz. Talk over what it is you want to play. But if you've had problems, if for whatever reason you've had to end the game prematurely, it might be a TPK, it might be because of reason 3 from before, it can be for any reason, consider maybe changing to another system. This is something that I'm a great proponent of. Mix it up. In our group, we do play a lot of Pathfinder games. This is primarily because we have quite a few Pathfinder fans in the group. We have fantasy fans, and it's a good system. It's well liked by many, many players. Not everybody enjoys it, obviously. But it's a good system in that it is accessible. It is easy to get into. Sure, it's got flaws. Every game system out there, in my opinion, has flaws. The perfect game system has not been invented. But Pathfinder works for a great many people. It lives up to the requirements that many, many, many players, especially casual players, would like in a game system. So, bearing that in mind, let's say that you've just finished a Pathfinder campaign and it did not go as you expected. It ended prematurely. Maybe consider changing to something else. Just for the next campaign. You can always go back to Pathfinder later if you can all agree on it, but just for the next campaign, consider World of Darkness. Consider Shadowrun, which is a system we haven't recorded anything in here yet, but which quite a few of our players actually like. I am not one of them, just for the full disclosure here. I was always a Shadowrun, or not Shadowrun, but Cyberpunk 2020. I think it's now been redubbed to Shadowrun 2077 because we're pretty close to 2020. But that was always my Cyberpunk netrunning preferred game. But a lot of people like Shadowrun, and incidentally, with the Netflix series that is now coming out called Bright, which is, I'm sorry, but it is such a Shadowrun ripoff. I think it's going to be even more popular. Who knows? We might eventually one day do a Shadowrun campaign on this game channel as well. I'm not making any promises. I'm just saying it is a game a lot of people like. You might also want to do something with a smaller niche sort of role-playing game. Blades in the Dark would be an example. You might go really old school and go back to the Palladium games, for those of you who are old enough to remember that, and if you're not, look it up. It's fun and wildly chaotic. You might want to do, if you're complete rules lawyers, look into something like Rollmaster, where it takes 2.5 hours for an experienced player to do a character, just because it takes forever to do the calculations, that sort of thing. So, my point is, consider it. I'm not saying you absolutely must, but consider it. Because there can be that feeling of, we just played this and it didn't end very well. It didn't end the way we had hoped. It didn't end the way we wanted, for lack of a better word. Let's not go back to that, because the next campaign is just going to feel... I don't like to use the word tainted, but I suppose it's the best word in this situation. It is the most accurate description. So, if that's the case, maybe that's not the thing to do. Also, I do remember, I am aware that not every role player out there has oodles and oodles of money, to spend on new game systems. You should see Heine's wall of role-playing games. It is incredible. He puts most of us to shame. I think Daniel might be getting there. I'm certainly not there. I have a relatively few systems on my shelf, but occasionally I'll expand with something new. The point here is, it can be a fresh start. That's all I'm saying, is it can be a fresh start for everyone. And if it's a system that not even the GM is particularly familiar with, you can learn together. There's something to be said for that as well. If that's the case, be patient, GM, with your players, because your players don't know the system and might need quite a bit of time to look things up. Players, please be patient with your game master. He or she doesn't know the system yet and may need quite a bit of time to look things up. But other than that obvious thing, you might find that, oh my god, this system is just the bee's knees. It's the best thing ever. Please, let's play this some more. And it might be something that you have never considered before. It happens. It's happened to me many times. I know it's happened to several of the other players as well, because suddenly, for goodness sakes, Masks, the superhero game that we're playing, that is also uploaded here on CharismaToAC. Go check it out. It is awesome. When you go there and listen to that is a game I would have never thought that I was going to enjoy, because, superheroes... Again, full disclosure, my very first role-playing game, 32 years ago now, my very first role-playing game that I bought with my own money as a wee 10-year-old git, was Marvel Superheroes Advanced Edition. I don't even know if it is possible to find that anymore in second hand. It's, oh good God, it was a horrible system. It really wasn't very good. By today's standards, it was laughably bad. But back then, it was, it was the hottest thing, and good grief, we thought we were so cool. We got to play Iron Man and and Wolverine and all of those different, Marvel characters that we knew and loved. And we went away from that system within, I think, about a year. One of our players found this great new game called GURPS, which back then was in 2nd edition, and we started playing that instead, and never looked back. So when I heard that we were gonna be, that we had a superhero game on the channel, and I joined it after the first little, the first story arc was over, I thought, hey, I need something to do with my evenings. I'm gonna give this an honest chance. I'm gonna go into this open-minded, give it a shot. And when I don't like it 2 months down the line, I'm going to have Daniel write my character back out. Now I'm one of the people pestering Daniel for, when are we playing next time? When are we playing next time? Because it's huge fun. I would have never thought it, but I love it. It's a fun little system. It's easy. And, I know that that the rest of the players enjoy it for much the same reason. It's not a system that gets in the way of the characters and having a good story, which is important to most of us. And so, yeah, that's one example. Try something new. You could also, obviously, say, no, wait, we want to continue playing the system we've played so far. If it's by general consensus, then you might want to stick with Pathfinder or GURPS or Palladium or whatever. Maybe because, as I said, you are, that's the game system that you've kind of decided this is going to be what this game group plays, or it might be because, we have 3 out of 6 people in this group cannot bloody afford to go out and spend $35-40 on more game system. They don't have the money. Fine, stick with the same game system. But if that's the case, players, I suggest, genuinely, sit down, give thoughts to your characters beforehand, so that they don't need to know each other. This is a common trope, obviously, in role-playing, is all the players know each other in advance, or, oh, you all meet in an inn. Oh, Jesus Christ, the oldest role-playing trope in the world. You meet in an inn. And that is, that's fine. If that's your thing, that's fine. I'm not going to knock it. Although, to me, it's not quite the thing anymore, but make sure that your characters can coexist beforehand. That you fill certain roles that you know in advance are going to be needed, depending on what kind of campaign it is you're going to be running. There's very little point, if you're going to run a Pathfinder campaign, that you turn up with 4 bards. It's probably going to be fun, but 4 bards is also going to get a little excessive after a while, and probably they won't be able to get through most encounters beyond the first couple of levels with any great efficacy, let's just put it that way, or 4 fighters, or 2 fighters and 2 rogues. It could be, probably could be fun for a little while, but you're pretty sure soon you're going to come up against a glass ceiling where your characters do not have the skill set or the abilities that you need. So try to figure that out, and try to figure out that in a way where your characters are not going to end up ripping each other's heads off within the first 30 minutes of game time, because you're just going to have another "we can't do this" moment. I'm not saying that inter-party strife and disagreement and even anger or the occasional fight, for all I know, cannot be conducive to good role-playing. It certainly can. But if that's going to be what happens constantly, you're in trouble. There are some examples from some of the older role-playing games out there that were turned into books, where I can't remember what one of them was for the Forgotten Realms in the old AD&D system, where the gods were basically thrown out and replaced by mortals who ascended to godhood, and there was one character in those books who was an evil bastard, Cyric, who was a horrible, evil little git. And it became very clear very quickly that the player who had originally come up with Cyric was basically, he had his own campaign simultaneous with everyone else. That character was so apart from the rest of the group that it could as well have been a solo campaign with one GM and one player, and then the group over there had the rest of the campaign, you know, running for themselves. And don't put that kind of burden on your GM, for goodness sakes. It's hard enough to run one campaign at a time. And as a GM, obviously, make sure that whatever you are about to run is something that thematically and system-wise is something your players are going to enjoy. Again, simply to avoid having another "no, we can't do this" moment. This is probably the most important advice I can give any GM out there on this issue whatsoever. Put your damned ego in a box, preferably make it lead lined, dig a very deep hole, 50 feet or more, throw the box in there, fill the hole with concrete, stick iron rods into the hole and the concrete before the concrete dries, and forget where it was. Just no. A storyteller with an ego is never, in my honest opinion, is never going to work for a game group. You are, I like to say that in, you know, the best kind of nobility in a fantasy setting, the proper nobility, so to say, are not the ones saying, "Oh yes, I have 15 villages and 2 towns and 1 city in my domain, and all of these many people are there to serve my needs." No, bloody no. The best nobles are there to say, "How do I serve their needs?" And I'm not saying that a GM is some kind of nobility, but a GM, as I've also said in a previous video, a GM storyteller always has all the power in a game group. Always. A storyteller can always drop something on the players that the players have no chance of overcoming. That is the ultimate power of the GM, is that they can at any given time wipe out the party if they want to, and no GM should ever do that willy-nilly, not ever. But because you have that much power as the GM, make sure that your ego has been packed away and that you are there to help facilitate fun for your players. I guarantee you will have fun as well. Whether it's because you enjoy the technical part of the game, or if it's because, like me, that you think the technical part of the game is tertiary, if anything, and the world building and the actual interaction between PCs and NPCs, or even just between the PCs amongst themselves, is what it's all about. The role playing, ROLE playing and not ROLL playing, is what's important. Then again, you will have fun if the players have fun. Role playing is a collaborative effort. I can't stress this enough. I can't say it enough times. You're probably gonna hear me say it in future videos as well, because it is one of the pillars of good role playing, in my opinion. So that is, those are, you know, bottom line, those are some of my thoughts on these issues of you know, starting something new. Again, if you might even want to go from a pre-written to a completely fresh, made up campaign, and if that's what you do, something you come up with yourself, take an extra 2 weeks before you start. You know, just have a short break. Take an extra 2 weeks, maybe even a month. give some serious thought to the campaign. Make sure you know where you want the players to go, and then forget. Not forget, and then remember, not forget. Remember when you do start playing that no battle plan ever survives contact with the enemy. Not ever. So you may have planned this great big fantastic story for your players, and the first time you need them to go left, at least metaphorically speaking, I'm willing to wager almost anything your players are going to go right. And if that throws a complete spanner in the works for you, you need to be able to immediately improvise, either to somehow guide them back onto the main storyline, if you can do so without being ham-fisted about it, or forget the original storyline and come up with something new, because if that's the way the players want to go, then let the players do so. Don't ever railroad the players. It's the worst thing you can do. They will get sick and tired of the campaign in record time, and for good reason, because it takes agency away from them. They don't feel they have any influence whatsoever on the game, so why bother? Why invest in themselves? So if you want to run an original game that you have thought up, that you've come up with yourself, be prepared to constantly change the narrative, the end goal, the NPCs, everything all the time. But if you can do that, in my opinion, the original campaign that you come up with yourself is more rewarding. It's the kind of story where you sit afterwards as a GM with a feeling of, I created this. I didn't just tell a story somebody else had already written. I made this. I will always look back on A Song of Tara with pride because of that, because the players made that campaign, but I created the story behind it. They gave it life and fleshed it out and made it everything that it was. It's their work, not mine, but the framework was mine. And that's all right. That is something you are entitled to claim as your own as the GM, and it is a gorgeous feeling. I can really recommend it. So, yes, I will finish on that note and say thank you. Thank you to all of you for listening to this and to all our other videos, like I started out by saying. And yet again, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill by now. Have an amazing holiday season if you haven't already. Have an amazing holiday season if you haven't, if it hasn't already passed, and if it has passed, have a next fantastic holiday season, because there's going to be another holiday season at some point. And on that note, I'm going to sign off from here, and I will see you next time on the flip side, on the other side of the coin and all of that, for some more, either The Long Voyage or some more of some other campaign, or for more A Storyteller Talks. So, yeah. Bye from here.